2, 3.
Let's go. I love to see the temple. I'm going there someday to feel the Holy Spirit, to listen and to pray. For the temple is a house of
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, and this is a Temple Ticker episode. Corey K. Ward, the Pharaoh himself. Why do we call him a Pharaoh? Well, he led a people falsely, and then he found a baby, and then he came back to the church. That's the story. I don't have time to get into it, but now he loves everything about temples of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we talk about them. In the first half of this episode, we are going to talk about all the updates, talking about the Salt Lake Temple, talking about what's going on in Cody, Wyoming, talking about all the things like that. And then in the second half of this episode, we make our fall 2024 General Conference Temple predictions. I've only got one, and I know it's happening. So I'm excited to be able to say, sure thing, bank on this, and then crawl back with the tail between my legs if that's not in fact the case in a couple of weeks. So Corey, where do we go?
Oh, what a teaser, G.
I know. Listen, I gotta drive people to the end of the episode. It's time spent listening, Corey. It's all the things. Tell us where we're going first. What do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, let's start with the temple dedications that have happened over the past couple weeks. The first one happened in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is the 196th dedicated temple. It was dedicated on September 15th by Elder Dieter Uchtdorf. And something I found interesting about the coverage of this is that he talked a lot about bridges. Pittsburgh is a city in this weird kind of river formation where the downtown is kind of surrounded by a river. And so there's something like 17 bridges around the city downtown itself. And so that was one of his themes of bridges. The temple is actually located in what's called the Cranberry Township. It's kind of way north, almost close to the Ohio border. So not close to the city of Pittsburgh that much, but it was interesting as opposed to his dedication of the McAllen, Texas temple a few months ago. He talked a lot about walls, about the border wall there in Texas and how it has the potential to separate communities. And so this kind of continues his theme about encouraging connection and bridges with the community. He says the temple is a bridge to, I would assume, I guess, God and the heavens. So, yeah.
What I was told, a friend of the show, Grant, who does our YouTube videos. So, by the way, he does a great job. They're usually a little bit off of what we release in just a regular podcast format, but you can see it, and he does some editing and some tweaks to that. He said that Elder Uchtdorf was particularly humorous at the dedication, which maybe that's sort of certainly of all the apostles, you think of Elder Uchtdorf being one of the more, kind of funny, I suppose, of the apostles. But he said, yeah, there was definite things where he was throwing a little bit of like city to city shade, like towards Philadelphia and some of these other places where he was joking around. And Grant made the observation that the morning dedicatory session and the afternoon dedicatory session, though a lot similar, significantly different between the content of the two of them. So found that was interesting and appreciated that insight. That's where he lives, is somewhere in and around the River City.
Yeah, that's interesting. The temple district that Pittsburgh will have includes 7 stakes. And so what is interesting about this is that it's like I said, on the northern end of the Pittsburgh area. So this is the temple that's assigned to the Cleveland area. Which, again, we talked about this earlier. It leads me to believe that maybe a temple in Cleveland wasn't in the long-term plans. That's why they put it so north in the city. But of course, Cleveland's now getting its own temple. We speculated that maybe it's getting its own temple as some sort of negotiation to purchase the Kirtland temple. We don't know, but that's just our speculation, I guess.
Well, and knowing the timeline now of the acquisition of the Kirtland temple, I'm sure that they had to say, hey, we know that you like to take these old buildings and make them to, a multi-use or a now-use kind of thing. We don't do that. We don't want that. Part of our deal is we want to still be able to come here. So prove it. Put your money put your money where your temple is, and then they did it there. For the people in like inner city Cleveland, and there's a lot of poorer folks, like the ability to be able to get on the bus to where the Cleveland temple is being built is nice. It's easy, where it wouldn't be as easy or as affordable as getting to places like Pittsburgh or Columbus or some of those other neighboring temples.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So maybe something with that too. It's maybe not that we need to be as cynical as we always are, but you're probably right. I want to know about Mendoza, Argentina, or as I like to call it, number 197.
There you go. You stole my thunder. Yeah, it was dedicated on September 22nd, this last weekend. And this temple dedication led me down a rabbit hole yesterday, Richie, because it was announced previously that Gary Stevenson would preside over this temple dedication.
Mm-hmm.
And last minute, Elder Rasband showed up. And the Church News notes that he had only been assigned a week before to do this event.
Mm-hmm.
So that also reminded me of just this last week on Tuesday, Elder Patrick Keaon gave a BOU devotional. It was not previously announced that he would give it. So I looked back to see who it was, and it was Gary Stevenson announced to give it. And when I was listening, I know, I was listening to his talk, and both him and his wife talked about how surprised they were that they gave this devotional. She was ready to go down to a retreat in St. George with her besties, and she had to cancel that. And luckily, all her friends also rescheduled, so she was very grateful about that. And then he was just like, "Hey, like I thought you guys were gonna have a seasoned apostle here. I'm sorry, instead you have me." And he was very gave a lot of jokes. That was probably the most I've heard an apostle ever laugh when he took out. There was President Reese came over and gave him a list, and he's like, "These are the list of people that didn't attend last week's devotional," and he just laughed and laughed more than I've ever heard an apostle laugh before. But yeah, his speech was really good. Even so, there was a lot of ums, and I could assume that he just barely put this together.
Sure. But what's going on with Elder Stevenson?
Where is Elder Stevenson? I guess probably should be sensitive in case there's a health scare or a family emergency or something. But to miss two events like this that were previously announced led me to some speculation. Okay. And my speculation, because it's so close to conference, maybe somehow he got a change in assignment. I don't know. But there was this cryptic message that not cryptic, but interesting tease that Elder Kearon gave. He said, he'll be here in a few months and he'll explain to you why he's not here today.
Interesting.
So that makes me think it wasn't something like a family emergency or health, because you wouldn't say that so flippantly that he explained to you what happened. So that leads me to think that something's happening so close to conference. I was watching clips of the 100th birthday celebration of President Nelson, and all three of the people in the first presidency are looking pretty old. And so did he receive a change in assignment? Do they need another counselor in the first presidency?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Can they, I don't know this, but we have our first presidency now. Can he switch? Could he, at this general conference, President Nelson, switch his first presidency, or are they the first presidency so long as President Nelson is the president, and or do they just add another counselor and add another counselor?
That's what David O. McKay did, and maybe Kimball, I can't remember. But yeah, there was 3 or 4 or 5 even counselors. President Hinckley was famously a third counselor in the Kimball administration. So if anyone that's pretty experienced about church matters, it's Gary Stevenson. He was a presiding bishopric. He was in the presiding bishopric. He was a CEO for a big company. He knows all the business stuff of the church. If they need any expertise of that in the first presidency, it would be him. He's younger than Elder Bednar, so he has the chance of being a church president in the future as well. It's a wild speculation. I don't know.
Yeah, but the question remains, what's going on with Elder Stevenson? And to your point, I want to make sure that the questions that I'm asking, I'm not being insensitive. If it's a family member or himself health-wise or something like that, certainly thoughts and, and concern for anything like that. So it's not, I'm not being flippant to say, oh, anything like that, but yeah, what's going on? And will we
Yeah,
know?
and Elder Kearon didn't seem somber, and so I just think that's a really interesting, I guess, s- events that have occurred over the past week. So
A third
we'll just see what
council?
happens.
What
That's my first conference prediction, and we haven't even got to the temple stuff, but that's my first prediction.
Now, do they would that go at just the regular time, or would that be at the beginning of the whole general conference? Do
I
you
assume it would be important enough they would just do it right at the morning session on the
Yeah.
Saturday.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. People need to
Anyways,
follow the Cultural Hall on X, or formerly Twitter. I think that we're live tweeting the entire general conference again, though I haven't gotten commitments from everyone. I would imagine we'll do at least most of the sessions. You can follow along. It's probably the only thing worth being on X anymore, if we're being honest. But find and follow the Cultural Hall. Okay. Okay. I like that. So,
okay, yeah, sorry to take you off the rails for temple
no,
stuff,
I love
but
that rabbit hole that we went down. So now we go to some
well,
changing.
let's talk
No?
about that
Oh, the
dedication in
temple
Mendoza.
dedication. Yeah.
So yeah, Elder Rasband came. He talked a lot about how 2025 will be the 100th anniversary of South America being dedicated,
Hmm.
as and Argentina, I think, was probably the first of those countries. He talked a lot about Melvin J Ballard. There's this famous prophecy by him. It's not necessarily a prophecy, but it's a blessing in the dedicatory prayer that South America will come like an oak tree, very slow at the beginning, but will come a large tree that will bear a lot of branches and then have a lot of seeds that will spread across the continent. And so that was when I took church history class at BYU. That was one of the questions. What did Melvin J. Ballard liken the church unto in South America? And it's an oak tree. And
Hmm.
so Elder Rasband talked about that. The temple in Mendoza is the fourth temple of 7 planned in Argentina, and it will cover 8 states and 2 districts. So it's right on the border by Chile, right by the Andes Mountains.
He's gorgeous, I bet. How about the Tallahassee, Florida temple? What's going on there?
Yeah, remember you talked about how they had 2 dedicatory sessions in Pittsburgh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that's going away because they announced that the Tallahassee, Florida temple will just have 1 dedicatory session at 10 a.m. Presided by Patrick Keaon. That same change was announced the Casper, Wyoming temple as well when they changed that dedication date. So basically now all the temples after 200 will just have 1 dedicatory session, nice and sweet. And then the temple will be dedicated. So
I wonder if that's what, because people are having to go to their stake centers to be together. Maybe the idea of let's all be together at the same time rather than all day, and the technical things of having it be all day and something like that, maybe.
yeah, I think members have traditionally just, of all the temple dedications I've participated in, most members just go to one because that's kind of like, oh, it's stake conference. We go for 2 hours and then we leave. That's when I was a missionary, that's what we did. But I did sense
Well,
that.
hold on, hold on. If we're likening it to stake conference, that's when members go, I don't really need to be there.
Well, to tell you the truth, there
Look,
probably is a lot of members that do that too.
yeah, yeah.
So, but I think, yeah, just to make it one experience, one event. So
I
yeah.
like it. It always has made no sense to me to have multiple dedicatory sessions because in my mind I always went, wait, so I'm coming in the afternoon. Is it already dedicated and now we're just pretending like we're dedicating it, or were they
That's what
pretending
they
they
said.
dedicated earlier?
A lot of times in the dedicatory sessions in the afternoon, they read the prayer that was previously given by the authority for the first session. So it was kind of considered dedicated at the first session anyways. It's kind of a remnant of the past when obviously we didn't have satellite transmission and you had to fit as many people in these sessions that you could. So
Yeah. I mean, it still very much is that. And then I suppose then the honor to be able to be in the room where it happens becomes that much more increased. But yeah, I think where it's also more frequent now with more temples being built, let's do it. Just one. Let's go. Let's open it up. Let's get after it. And now some other open houses have begun, are beginning.
Yeah, the San Pedro Sula Honduras temple had a media day on September 9th. The area presidency was there to give tours to the media. It's going to finish on the 28th. Earlier this year, I went to go to the open house of the Pueblo, Mexico temple. And so I recognize this design. It's very similar. But of course, the colors and the design are a little bit different. They have some more kind of turquoise, yellow, greens in the temple, while Pueblo is more like blue hues and everything. So a little bit different. But yeah, I recognize the design. It's kind of a Spanish colonial design as well.
And people in the show notes can click on the links and be able to see all of the things that you're talking about. You have done an amazing job about putting these things together. So I always tell people, open up the show notes and then click along, and you can be able to see the photos as we talk about these different temples. Deseret Peak, not the Verges Temple. It's opened. It's opening.
Well, the Verges still had to move, even though the temple's never built there.
I know.
That's a big thing.
If we had a cafeteria still in our temples, I think they would have tried to make a deal to say, Verges staff, those of you that
Just
are
put it
members,
in
come
there.
on in. Let's do this here in the basement.
There we go. Yeah, the temple opened for the media and VIP tours on September 23rd. Sister Susan Porter was there, and some of the area presidency as well. The open house will start this coming weekend and then continue through October 19th. But of course, don't go during conference weekend because it will be closed. So, and we saw the interior photos of this temple as well, which we actually, back when the temple was trying to get approved there in Erda, they had released some interior renderings of the temple. And so it's interesting to just go back and see these interior renderings and compare them to the final product. And they're pretty similar.
Okay.
So I guess good job with the planning and everything.
Thanks a lot, Erda. You still allowed us to be able to do that. The temple district for the Deseret Peak Temple on the west, does it go all the way out to like West Wendover and take in a good portion of Nevada?
Yeah, I will take over all of Elka and Wendover as well. But of course, Elko is getting its own temple. That's probably only half a year away from being finished. So pretty soon they won't even have to drive to Utah anymore.
And they're like, good riddance.
The exterior of the Desert Peak Temple, they actually used some dolomite that was mined in Tooele Valley, and they put it as part of the aggregate admixture for the concrete. And so they tried to make this temple very Tooele Valley. They also used some of the designs like saltgrass, lupine flower, and cliff rose in its design. So I guess those are the things, if you go to this temple, look out for those motifs.
And this is the call out to all the folks that live in the Wasatch Front that listen to the Cultural Hall. You feel like the Deseret Peak Temple is forever away. Tooele is not that far. Go out, take family, take non-member friends, take all the things. It's not nearly as far as you think it is, and then you'll go out there and you'll go, oh yeah, it isn't as far as I thought. And also, now I have to get back into Salt Lake, and that's what feels like it takes forever. Like it feels like it's like 20 minutes out there and then an hour and a half to get back. But the 20 minutes out there, just do it. Take the family, put the kids in the car, road trip, but not on conference weekend.
Yeah.
Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah, this temple had a groundbreaking on September 7th. Stephen R. Bangerter was there to do it. Not a ton of coverage about this. There was a local legislator that showed up. But yeah, this will be the first temple in Kansas.
Now there's not a Kansas City temple or a
Kansas City, Missouri temple.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, good. Way to go, Kansas. You finally get one. Next groundbreaking.
Yeah, this one was announced. The Tarawa Kiribis Temple was announced to have a groundbreaking on September 2nd. Jeremy R. Jaggi will preside over that event. They announced that there'll also be a new meeting house and a patron housing facility that won't be located on the temple grounds, but they said will be located 450 meters west of the temple site. Previously, when they announced the site, it was announced for the island of Tarawa, right in front of the Parliament building of this country. So it's really interesting that the church is really bringing this temple right front and center of this country. Previously, in an interview, one of the guys that let's see, his name is Robert Kirby and Brent Roberts. They talked about how this temple has had a lot of challenges to build. There's not a lot of this is a very small country. This country is in danger of being swallowed up by sea level rise.
Jeez.
Yeah, and they said that in the whole country, there's not even a crane. There's no like construction crane, so they have to ship one there. And they're also going to ship the modules to build a modular temple there. And the construction crew will all be out of the country as well. And so it is interesting that they had a lot of troubles getting what they needed because the material wasn't in the island. None of the expertise, none of the equipment was there. So yeah.
My hope is, and leaders in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints listening to this episode, my hope is that we do loading of the crane onto the boat, and then the boat across the seas, and then the unloading of the crane, and then getting it set and doing the whole thing. That's the way to do this temple. Let's do it from the point of view of the crane. We had to bring it in. It wasn't one there. All the things. Come on. Anthropomorphize the crane. Let's go.
There you go.
They won't do it.
There might be. You never know.
Vancouver, Washington. I like seeing that this is starting to, get some more moving forward.
Yeah, we heard about a site about this. It's going to be built in Camas, Washington, just barely outside of Vancouver. A rendering was released. It's another one of these designs that we see that's being built in Burley and being proposed in McKinney, Texas. Hopefully that's not a bad omen for the approval of this temple. But recently you also sent me the story that the state DOT released this environmental study about the area around the temple. Right now they're trying to realign the road, and they're going through all the environmental stuff about that. And they said that those things can be mitigated. So it sounds like that's probably a sign that the temple will be approved. But there was still some talk in the story about maybe some people were opposed to it. So we'll see if that materializes.
But I'd like a good complaint against the temple that isn't it's too tall. This one, environmental impact. There we go. Okay. I'll chat environmental impact. Too light at night? All right. Let's talk about some lights at night. Too tall? Okay. Oh, is the temple too tall? Is it too tall for your area? Fine, we'll lower it. And then also in Washington, the Tacoma Temple.
Yeah, this is the site for this temple was announced. Like tradition, it will not be in Tacoma, but in Federal Way, which is a big city in itself. So I'm surprised that they didn't rename it Federal Way. But it's going to be located right on I-5, and right across from the Wild Waves theme park. So on one side, if you look over at the theme park, and on the other side, you'll see the temple site.
Which is great if you've got kids that aren't of age to go into the temple or maybe not as interested. You get there in the morning, you drop them off, and you say, have a grateful day, and listen to the lifeguards, and then parents go right across the way. Or you make it like and people in Utah will appreciate it, you make it like a lagoon trip, and you bring the RV, and you stay right nearby, and then you one day to the temple and one day to the water park, and then go back to wherever you're from.
There you go. You can do that for the whole 2 months that it's sunny in Washington.
Hey. You're right, but hey.
Yeah, the temple will be the same design as this one in Vancouver. Multi-story temple, 45,000 square feet. We'll see, I guess, how similar the exterior looks, but it looks like that's kind of the design they're using for this temple. And then they also said that the Sound Transit Agency, they recently purchased a mega church in the area, and they're going to demolish that church and have a maintenance facility for the new rail extension. And that there plans to be a rail extension somewhere near I-5 and this temple site by 2035. So that's kind of interesting.
And when I read over your notes just very briefly before we start to chat, I put it that the church bought a mega church, and that was where they were going to put the temple. And I was like, okay, I am here for it. Let's go. Let's bring the drums and the guitars and come on. So, okay, that'd be cool. It'd be great. It'd be great. With it becoming increasingly difficult in the SeaTac, the Seattle Tacoma area to get around because of traffic and stuff like that. Having it being right along, some mass transit would be a huge thing. We've got so much temple stuff and still temple predictions to come. Let's do it.
Yeah, we got a interesting update about the Salt Lake Temple. Nothing too new in the update. They did release some new interior renderings of the Salt Lake Temple, what it will look like when it's done. Some of them were updated from the ones in the past, and I put together a Google folder to compare some of these renderings from the ones that they had released previously. Because it is interesting. Most of it's just like carpet. They kind of refined their design about the carpet and some of the designs in the walls and the ceilings and everything. They released an interesting new image of the temple recommend desk that will be in one of the pavilions. So it is kind of a large kind of a dome that you see right there at the temple recommend desk. So that's really interesting.
Gorgeous, and tons of light and tons, like almost like city break.
I know.
I almost want to hope that they can retract the ceiling from that temple recommend room and then have it come back and close over, because it's just that much light.
Well, in the underground one, they literally do have like a skylight above it, so where you can see the temple. So I think there's gonna be like possibly 3 recommend desks for the Salt Lake Temple. And they said there'll be this new kind of central hall where before the annex of the Salt Lake Temple, they said it was kind of confusing, had a lot of like low drop ceilings. It wasn't very intuitive how to get to the main part of the temple. So they said this will be a lot more intuitive. They released a new image of the grand staircase, which is basically the part that connects the annex to the old part of the temple, the endowment rooms and everything. So that's interesting. They made a emphasis that the Victoria theme will be consistent throughout the temple, so you won't really notice like, oh, this is the annex part, and now we're going into the old part. It'll just kind of look like one temple. If you're a fan of the design of this Provo City Center Temple, I mean, it looks a lot similar, but of course unique to the designs of the Salt Lake Temple. They talked about how they're going up from 22 ceiling rooms, or they're going up from 13 ceiling rooms to 22 ceiling rooms. They're making progress on the baptistries, plural. There's 2 of them. They released some construction photos of that. They also talked about how some rooms will receive significant changes, like the endowment rooms and the baptistry. The old baptistry, of course, is being replaced by 2 endowment rooms, and some of the elements of the old baptistry will come into the new ones. Of course, we previously talked about how the murals, they said, were not be able to be saved. They put a little bit more context about that. They said that the interior walls of the temple had unreinforced masonry, which is kind of a red flag for earthquake proofing. And that a lot of these murals were painted on the plaster and just weren't able to be saved. And so part of them were saved and put in the church archive, perhaps for display later, maybe not. But what will be preserved is the celestial room and the 2 original ceiling rooms just off the celestial room, and then the assembly hall above on the 5th floor, as well as the spiral staircases that go up to the parts of the balcony in there. And then most of the veil room will also be preserved like it was, although it will be the veil part of the temple is significantly expanded. And yeah, they talked about how that as well of changing from a 4-room progression endowment, that it's just going to be a stationary where you stay in one room. A lot of kind of historians and historic preservationists have talked about how that kind of represents the change of the symbolic change that the church has gone through, where rather than kind of experience the endowment, we patrons more kind of receive the endowment than it had been in the past. Some criticize this as kind of a corporate decision based on efficiency, because the church keeps the 4-room progressive design in other temples like Manti and some other of the first ones. And they also repainted some of the murals in St. George or Arizona. So a lot of people are like, why don't they repaint them here? So yeah, it's just, I guess, the discussion of, I guess, what went on in planning this renovation.
Do you know or care to speculate In the Manti Temple, when they allowed people for the open house, you could be able to step into the Holy of Holies there off of the Celestial Room. Do you think that will be something that will be open to just regular patrons as they go through the Salt Lake Temple? Or because of the significance of that, it will be like, don't go behind that door?
Well, there was some, like we talked about, there was some discussion about that's not necessarily the Holy of Holies, it's just a sitting room. There's kind of some myth around that room because it kind of has a dome, just like the one in Salt Lake.
Mm-hmm.
But the one in Salt Lake has always been kind of off limits. Maybe they will open it up for the open house. I would prefer that. But
Sure.
maybe it won't be.
Yeah.
I also hope that the offices of the First Presidency and from the 12 will be open. Apparently those are receiving a lot of renovation. Those really haven't been seen ever. Interestingly enough, they released a picture of some of the Tiffany windows, and one of them is kind of like a stained glass of the Salt Lake Temple itself.
Mm-hmm.
That image hasn't really been seen ever because it's up in those administrative office areas. So I do hope that the open house will include that as well.
And I think that the apostles should have to stay by their offices and be able to show people through and say, "Hey, so this is my office. Come on in. This is where I work." They won't.
Something that was brought to my attention is that there was a job posting recently
Mm-hmm.
on the church website for senior project manager, Salt Lake Temple virtual open house. So they're looking for someone who has experience kind of leading events and big things, and also that has a lot of experience with cameras and VR and stuff like that, digital media. Someone who has at least like 7 years of experience and bachelor's degree and everything, and they're looking for someone to kind of direct this virtual open house. They said it's positioned for 3 or 4 years, so I assume it's going to be starting like probably next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then run throughout the preparation and the open house and probably a little bit after. So that kind of indicates that they're starting to put a plan together about the open house.
Yeah.
Hopefully that 2026 date stays. Maybe it will be a little bit later. Who knows? But if you don't have the chance to go to the Salt Lake Temple, it sounds like there will be a virtual option.
Yeah,
that will be pretty
incorporation
immersive.
of VR would be unreal. And then, do we start to do that for all the temples, or is it just because the Salt Lake one is so significant that we do it for that? Because that would be cool too. And then, do we even have to go to the temple to receive our endowments? Can we just receive them through VR? And then, do we have to even build temples anymore? And then, are we able to take that money and be able to put it towards humanitarian efforts? And then, I'm telling you.
Wow. Yeah, this is something that Kurt Franklin has talked about a lot. He thinks that the future of temple worship will be VR. So
Yep.
maybe this is just the beginning. So
yeah, it is.
There you go, Kurt.
We don't know where this will all go. Kona, Hawaii, though, that's where I would like to be right now. I am not. Sad about the temple. Are we sad? I guess not.
Yeah, the renovation is a lot more expensive than I thought it would be. It looks like they nearly demolished the temple. There's just like some steel frames up from the original temple. So it is quite a big renovation that they're doing, stripping it down to the steel studs. Something interesting about this that I learned that he talked about like a year ago, that they changed the exterior rendering of the temple. What is originally going to be a little bit higher, taller, but the local government denied that request, so they designed it to be shorter. So fun fact.
Well, I think there needs to be a meeting, and I'm not a leader certainly, but I think there needs to be a meeting where we go, all right, is there like a height that we know we don't have to fight with on the steeples? How about that height, everyone? And then we don't have so many court cases and all these different things going on. And I know people are screaming at their earbuds saying, but what about religious freedom? But I also think maybe like the millions of dollars saved and the people not being made mad and all these different things. Anyway, I know we got a lot of stuff to get to. Let's take us to Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, the temple's going fast because it is they're already delivering the modular units, and they're putting them together right now as we speak. So the temple might finish a lot faster than other temples if everything goes smooth. I assume that the supply chain kinks are kind of smoothed out by now. Some of the other modular temples were kind of slower, but this one can go really fast. So get ready.
It really does look like little, because the baptismal font is in the middle. It really does look like just like Lego blocks. They're like, and then this one goes here, and the crane drops it in, and then this one goes here. And it is just, as you look at the pictures again that you've put together, and you can find in the show notes for this, it's just like whoop, 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 that goes there, that goes there. It'll go very quickly.
Yeah, talking about a modular temple, the Cody, Wyoming temple, it's happening. They've started preliminary construction work on this temple. Also, they already have all the modules on site. This temple could go really fast too if they have all their stuff ready, because they've been waiting for a long time for this. The church spokesman did say that there'll be a groundbreaking announced soon. So it looks like, although this case still might go to the Supreme Court, I'm assuming that it's unlikely to succeed if the church is already planning construction. So yeah, it's happening, I guess, just like it was planned.
We have some exciting audio from the foreman of the Cody, Wyoming temple. Have you heard this yet? I don't even know if you've heard this yet.
I haven't.
Yeah, let me see if I can play it for you. Hurry, guys! Hurry and build it before they tell us we can't build it. Let's go!
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know how we got that, but that's incredible. How about New Zealand?
Yeah, this temple is in the temple in Wellington that's being built in Orio, I think is how you say it. Orua, I don't know. Yeah, it's going towards going in front of the town council to kind of get approval. The former mayor of the city is supporting the temple. But there's others that are coming in on ice or potentially in the bay area of this part of New Zealand. So they said they'll have a consent hearing that will be held across 3 days. So I'm unfamiliar with local government in New Zealand, but it sounds interesting that they'll have some sort of 3-day event where you'll hear everything. Maybe it's like a comment period, I don't know. But they basically got a committee together of 3 people, including this mayor, and they're kind of going to give a recommendation in front of the city.
And it lasts for 3 days. That seems like a long time. The big complaint is that it's too big. It doesn't fit the area. That the size of building compared to all the other things, it's like, what? And if you look at the renderings, I'm not sure if it's a rendering like point of view. The rendering makes it look like it's going to be 10 stories tall.
And yeah, it's only like a 15,000 square foot temple.
Yeah.
It's like a really small temple, but it's like very tall.
It's like an obelisk. We're building an obelisk temple with an elevator and go up 30 stories. I don't know. We'll see.
It's only 2 floors, but yeah, it's 37 meters tall.
But it looks forever tall. Yeah. I don't know. Perspective maybe on that whole thing. All right. Japan.
Yeah, really quick. Elder Cook was in Japan. He went to Osaka and he visited the future temple site. We talked about how that temple site is like this old university that the church bought. So not much more details about that, but he was there. So
okay, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're getting into fall of 2024 General Conference Temple predictions. We'll come back and do that in the second half of the Temple Ticker. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit LennonDesign.com.
Here in the second half of the Temple Ticker, it's time for wild speculation. It's where I get to say, what, where, huh? What are you talking about? And I always point to the Temple outfield and say, that's where the home run will be. This is the one that is happening for sure. You can count on it. Take it to the bank. Tell your friends. All of that. That's what we're going to do for the next little bit about temples. Now, as we look at temples, he, that is President Nelson, needs to announce somewhere between 15 and 20 if we're going to get to 500 by 2030. So, are you saying that we're going to fall in form with that? There will be between 15 and 20 again?
I don't think there's any slowing down. Yeah, in the birthday celebration, President Aaron talked about just how gung-ho President Nelson is about getting more temples to people closer. And so I think we're still continuing at that pace.
Okay, good. I like that. I asked you to go top 10, and so we'll go through them. The one that I know for sure is happening is one of your top 10, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Go first or save it for last?
It is actually in your order last, so we're good.
Okay. First one, Kampala, Uganda. This has been on my list for a long time, I know, but it's the country with the most members without a temple. They're building one right now in neighboring Kenya, but that's still a long ways away for a lot of people. So I think this will happen finally. Maybe.
Yeah, let's do it.
Next one, Port Harcourt, Nigeria. This area of Nigeria has actually had a lot of temples announced, and there's been like 2 announced in the past couple of years. But this is a city that has, I think, the most stakes without a temple. There are currently 8 stakes in the city, and so I just think that it could support its own temple as well. Continue on Africa. There's 2 countries that are in the same mission, Togo and Benin. They're both French-speaking countries in between Nigeria and Ghana. And I think probably one in Togo and Lome is probably the most likely. And the church has been really small there, but it's grown a lot, and now there's 5 stakes amongst these 2 countries. So okay. I think that's probably a good bet.
Your next one is pretty peculiar to me. Are we saying Lima South, so then that completes the quadrant? Isn't there a north, an east, and a west in?
Yeah, well, President Nelson has talked about multiple temples in large metro areas, and Lima is one of those large metro areas in Peru. Lima is the city with the most stakes outside the United States, period. There's like 48 stakes in the city metro area. We already got a second temple, Los Olivos Temple, which is on like the northwest side. There's the existing one, the first Lima temple that's in the far east side. But I think just to fill that gap, fill that triangle, one in the south is probably warranted.
Yeah, you're saying triangle, I'm saying square, but we need the third point before we get the fourth point. So you're pointing to the south and saying somewhere, I'll buy that. That's
south or maybe the far north. So not quite a perfect square, but probably the south, but possibly north.
Okay. El Salvador.
Yeah, neighboring Guatemala has gotten a lot of temple announcements. El Salvador still just has 1 temple. And there's a ton of stakes that are in the Santa Ana area. Let's see, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's like 10 stakes right there.
Jeez.
And I think that's pretty likely to have its own temple.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
The next one, staying in Latin America, but in the Caribbean, Santiago, in the northern part of the Dominican Republic. There's like 6 stakes, there's 7 stakes, and the temple in the Dominican Republic was dedicated in the 90s. So I think it's about due for another temple.
Well, and isn't the Dominican Republic, isn't it oddly like governed? Like part of it is one thing and part of it is another, or like the ability to go from west to east or something like that. I seem to remember in the back of my mind that.
Are you talking about like the divine between Haiti and Dominican Republic?
Well, maybe that's what I'm thinking. Because yeah, is it all part of the same island? And
they're all on the same island, but Haiti already has its own temple, so that's not too much of a. But I don't. Maybe it could be. I'm sure it is like more difficult there to travel than it is other countries. I don't know.
Okay, I support that then.
My next prediction is a little bit vague because I'm not like so sure about this one, but it's southern Chile. There's like a bunch of cities with like two stakes next to each other, so I don't know which of these cities. There's a Sorno of Chile, which is probably the most likely. There's a city north called Valdivia and a city south called Puerto Montt, where they recently moved the mission headquarters.
Hmm.
So either of those cities could get a temple announced, but also in the far south, we talked about before, this would be the southernmost temple in Punta Arenas, Chile, which would also cover part of Argentina as well. So I think that's all a good possibility.
I just made this quick choice about it. It's Punta Arenas. That's where it's going. I'll go on the record and say
We got one up in Fairbanks last time, which is the farthest north temple. So would we get the farthest south one?
yeah, we got to dot the globe. We got to fulfill the prophecy, Corey K. Ward. Okay. And then this was interesting. How many are in Arizona presently?
I think it's 7. Maybe I think there's let's see, six dedicated, and then the one in Yuma that was just announced. But I think still far northern Arizona, I could get another one, like in Flagstaff, maybe Prescott, but probably Flagstaff.
Okay. This was interesting to me. You don't hear this area talked about very much in relation to the church, but New Jersey.
New Jersey. Yeah, it's on the map it looks really close to obviously Manhattan, just across the river. They're obviously right now renovating that temple in Manhattan. But I just think that because of most people in New Jersey live a more like suburban lifestyle with obviously with highways and vehicles, where people in New York live more transit oriented, and that temple in New York is like more in the city right next to a subway stop.
Mhm.
So for people that live in New Jersey, it's probably somewhat tough and probably time consuming to go to Manhattan. So possibly another temple just like in probably like by Newark or maybe Morristown, Scotch Plains area, for all the people that live there and drive around. So I think it's a good possibility.
Now, this next one is the one that I'm saying it's happening. It was funny. I happened to be in this town just the other day. I posted this on the Culture Hall Facebook page, and I could not be more sure of a thing. I may eat every one of these words after a couple of weeks, but Price, Utah. And I'll go ahead and take the lead on why this should be. So to get to Price, Utah, you have to go through, I think it's the third most dangerous highway in the United States, which is Spanish Fork Canyon, Price Canyon, Highway 6 is what it's called. And there are frequently times when that highway will be closed because someone was trying to pass someone and then there's a head-on collision. And to get around it is several hours. You have to go down to I-70 or up and around. So people that live in Price live in Emery County, Castledale, a significant area for the church. Orangeville, all of these places, they have to go either to I think probably Monticello or Payson at this point, or the Provo City Center Temple is their temple right now.
Yeah, I think that Payson probably is the closest, but they're actually assigned to go to the Manti Temple, which is interesting, even though it's longer drive.
Yeah, I guess that's true because you kind of come up through Highway 6 and you can turn off and go down towards Manti. There is no reason, zero reason, that Price won't get a temple at this point. There's also a college in that town, between like 7 and 10,000 students. Young people were making a focus on that. There's Green River, Utah, and even some people that could come up from Moab, because it would only be, Price is only like 90 minutes from Moab to be able to come up. I'm telling you, from since I made that post, I've had people reach out that have said, we know that the church just purchased a large land parcel there in Price, and that the stake presidencies are like, guys, it's coming up to General Conference. Let's pray and fast for a temple. All signs indicate Price, Utah will be getting a temple.
Okay, yeah, that was definitely on top of my Utah prediction. I think the Wasatch Front is a little bit saturated right now
Mm.
with temples. I think, yeah, they're ready to build more temples outside of the Wasatch Front.
Although I will say this, Price will be announced this fall, 2024, and spring 2025. you will get a Mapleton or Spanish Fork, Utah temple announcement.
There we go. Yeah, that's on my honorable mentions because I have to cover all my bases. So Spanish Fork. I also have been thinking about Weber County. There's only one temple in Ogden, maybe North Ogden as well.
When you get too far North Ogden, though, you're into Brigham City, but I think that you could do a North Ogden temple for sure. A lot of people moving to foothills there.
Also assigned to the Ogden Temple is Evanston, Wyoming. And there's like 2 stakes in Green River, Rock Springs. There's one in Lyman and Kemmerer. Maybe like a location in Fort Bridger, kind of in the middle of all these stakes, but maybe Evanston. So that's
Evanston, the church has a huge parcel of land right off of I-80 that would be perfect for it. So I could see that for sure.
Oh,
and again, that's another treacherous passage 4 months of the year where if people didn't have to drive a long ways to do it, I'll support that.
Yeah, really fast. Other ones, Little Rock, Arkansas, I think is likely. In Brazil, we talked about the other metro areas. Sorocaba is a kind of a medium-sized city outside of Sao Paulo. I think it's a good possibility. Another one in Ecuador, possibly in Machala. One in northern Nigeria in the capital of Abuja. Also the country of Malawi. It has had recently 2 stakes for the first time organized. There wasn't any stakes, and now all of a sudden there's 2. So that's a possibility. And then if we're talking about Europe, I'm thinking probably the most likely is Albania at Tirana, just because of how long ways away it is from other temples. So they're my honorable mentions, just to cover bases and just to say I didn't warn you. So
now one though that you didn't mention, it's the last one on your honorable mention, Sharon, Vermont.
Oh, there we go.
The birthplace of Joseph Smith. Have you been there?
I haven't.
Yeah,
but it just seems as we're preparing for the sesquicentennial or whatever of the restoration, it just seems like something that would happen. I don't know.
If we do that, it is 10,000% symbolic. There is not.
There is a stake in Vermont. Come on, Richie. There's people there that would go.
It is so far and so remotely removed from so many things. It would be just symbolic, and I think we're past doing stuff like that. My dark horse, that's the word I was trying to think of. My dark horse candidate for Utah, Fillmore, a Fillmore temple, or like somewhere around the middle of the state, like Levan, Fillmore. I don't think that it'll go far. Yeah, Delta, somewhere middle of the state, something like that they'll go, listen, there's enough people here to be able to support that. I think that might be where we go.
Yeah, well, I got my temple bracket ready this year. So if you want to look at my top 60 or so predictions, you can download that temple bracket. Circle the ones that advance the ones you think are most likely, play with your friends and family for a general conference. So,
and I'm going to make sure I get that posted. I'm going to make sure I get that posted pre-conference this year as opposed to post-conference like I've done in the past, so that people can play along, find and follow and download and all that stuff at theculturalhall.com. You are an amazing person, and all that you do with all of these things. It's a crap ton of work. I hope everyone appreciates it, but it's so cool to know what's going on. The latest and greatest, it's a temple ticker, and I'm not going to talk to you until after general conference, and we assess whether you know what the heck you're talking about or if it was just blind guesses in the dark. I'm looking forward to that. Hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
Hope that if you weren't able to listen this time, that we will listen next time.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Rick McGee, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of the Cultural
Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.